Hey there, welcome to Kitchen Sink University, the Logic, Cognition, and Critical Thinking series. Today, I'm going to be exposing the truth about conspiratorial thinking, that is. I'd like to go over, uh, you know, buzzword awareness. All right, so let's get started. When talking about buzzword awareness, maybe we should just kind of define buzzword. It's it's one of those words that you'll see pop up all the time that are meant to be kind of attention grabbing, sort of sometimes like a call to action, or like wake up sheeple. uh, Sometimes they're a phrase like that. Basically, anytime you see something that saturated in your social media, primarily this is where you see this nowadays. You really need to take a critical look at it and start asking yourself the right questions, um, which we'll get to in the end. But I first want to go over some of the biggest buzzwords to throw up a red flag when you see them. The first one being narrative. Um, you'll hear this all the time. Well, that's the official narrative. That's the narrative that they want us to believe. Things like that, and it's almost always accompanied by, "Of course, that's what they want us to believe," and phrases like that. These are very leading statements. They're trying to lead you to believe what they're trying to say. Really, they're the ones with the narrative here. A narrative is implying that there's a story being told, where normally these people, these conspiracy theorists, are using the word to imply that the media or the scientists or the government have a story to tell, even if they're coming at you with facts and data that are corroborated by other sources that aren't really even related. There's no conflicts of interest and things like that. Yet, when a conspiracy theorist says, "Look at that, it's a narrative," people just throw away all that evidence and they glom onto that conspiracy theorist and say, "You know what? They're probably right." And that's what I'm here to combat. So, when you hear someone saying that there's a narrative at play, maybe they're telling the truth. Maybe they're being legit. Because here's the thing about buzzwords is they're really crafty. They're actual words with actual meanings, and they can be used unironically. So if you're explaining to someone that a conspiracy theorist is weaving a narrative, well, yeah, absolutely. They're telling a story. They're telling a story that has no real evidence, or any evidence they are using has been debunked or retracted. And so you'll see this a lot with these buzzwords. Conspiracy theorists basically rebrand the word and try to use its power against the truth of the matter, the reality. And I'll come to the word truth shortly. The next buzzword that I want to go over is mainstream. Mainstream media. There's this is also one that's sneaky. I mean, mainstream, it definitely is an innocuous word. I mean, it's harmless enough, really. But the way the word is used, the intention behind it, gives it the power. The intention behind most people saying mainstream media is to get you to not believe what you're hearing from the mainstream media. And just because you hear the same thing on multiple different news stations, that is not proof that you're being lied to. If anything, the more likely explanation between being lied to and being told the facts is the facts. You're more than likely being told the facts. Anytime a story is corroborated by lots of different people that have almost no ties to each other, even, you can have Fox News on the conservative end saying the same thing as the BBC, which is a totally different country and different slant and everything. I mean, yes, media has slant. Human beings are what make up media, and human beings are never free of bias. That's important to understand. That's important to remember in your critical thinking exercises. I'm not saying at all that you should take the media to be like blanket truth. Never. But don't do that for conspiracy theorists either. You really need to put them both under the microscope. So when you hear mainstream in front of media, almost always it's a little tongue-in-cheek. It's almost trying to get you to think that it's this huge web of conspiracies that are out to get you, or out to oppress you, and out to scare you. That brings me to the next buzzword, fear-mongering. This is my favorite one because I have yet to see a case where a conspiracy theory doesn't do this. They use the word fear-mongering. They say mainstream media is using fear-mongering to get you to be scared and compliant and control you. You see what they're doing there? They're trying to scare you. That's fear-mongering. So they're doing the exact thing that they're telling you someone else is doing, that someone else probably isn't doing that, but you take them at their word. Why? Have you ever stopped to think about that? Have you ever wondered and asked yourself, why is this person on the internet with their YouTube video evidence of, a whistleblower that says the mainstream media is weaving webs of lies? Why are you taking that over a world full of evidence to the contrary? So now I really need to get to the nitty-gritty, difficult one. Truth. When you're being told this is the truth, automatically start getting skeptical. If someone has to tell you right off the bat that they're exposing the truth, that they're, telling you what they don't want you to know, automatically you got to start thinking, what I'm hearing may in fact be a lot of bullshit. And here's why. Shakespeare once said, one of his characters in his play said, "Methinks he doth protest too much." And what he meant by that was, when a person goes out of their way to make sure that you're hearing them tell you how trustworthy they are, they probably aren't trustworthy. It's common with lies to have certain attributes. They'll have extraordinary confidence in what they're telling you. They will try to make you feel stupid for not feeling the same way or not believing what they believe. They may even believe it themselves. But they take this lie and craft it as truth. And it may not even be that they're willingly lying to you. They themselves may have been duped. and they aren't exercising critical thinking, and they're propagating bad information. And they take that bad information, they latch onto it because there's a cognitive bias at play. They are confirming what they want to believe because something out there has provided what falls under their criteria as evidence, though evidence has to be fact-based. It has to be something that you can look up and corroborate yourself, that other people have also corroborated. Peer review, basically, scientific method. So anyway, when somebody is telling you that they're exposing the truth, or that they're the ones telling you the truth, they could be right, but they're probably not. The truth is a tricky thing. The truth, it's not always this side or that side. One side's lying, the other's telling the truth. Oftentimes, you got to look at things in shade of gray. Shades of gray basically allows you to see all the little nuances. It allows you to recognize that there's actually more than two sides to a story in many cases. So it doesn't really have to be this or that. It can be up here, it can be over here. Usually the truth lies somewhere in the middle-ish. It can be leaning more towards one direction than the other. And this is where it gets really tricky, is because it's not like there's any just one truth. There's a lot of truths that build up to an argument. So what I mean by this is, for instance, there's a video running around right now of some doctor that was jailed, and she was jailed for stealing lab supplies, but she's telling the story that she was jailed for trying to blow the whistle on people spreading disease through vaccines. That's gonna warrant its own video to go over all that's wrong with that. But in the video, she also makes mention that pharmaceutical companies are making too much money off of drugs and vaccines. Well, that's true. Because there's a nugget of truth in there, it does not lend credence to the rest of what's being said. Every single thing has to be vetted for itself. And I mean, it's just like the Bible. There may be lots of evidence that some of the places and people happened in history, and they just happen to be mentioned in the Bible. That doesn't mean that the earth was created in 7 days, a few thousand years ago. One truth in a giant story does not corroborate all the other truths. I shouldn't even say truths there. It doesn't corroborate all the other stories that compile the whole message. So that's really what you have to take a look at, is you have to understand that you're hearing lots of details. Each of those details has some measure of truth or lie or misunderstanding, let's say. And so finally, what I want to get to, as far as a buzzed phrase that's really more of like a defense mechanism of sorts. Anytime you challenge the thought that a conspiracy theorist has, they get really defensive and say, hey, I'm just asking questions, man. Well, they're not asking the right questions. There's there is a right and a wrong way to ask questions in a critical thinking manner. You need to ask the question before you decide what you believe. So these conspiracy theorists are deciding, this is what I think is really going on. But when challenged, I'm just going to say, well, hey, couldn't it be possible? That's a question. It's a fine question to ask. But if you're asking it after you've already personally decided that it is true, it's a bit of a disingenuous question. You're not really asking that question of yourself. You're using that question to lead others to think, oh, gee, I suppose maybe it could be. And sometimes for many people, that's enough to think, oh, well, that must be the truth. Uh, it it also buttresses this idea that they're trying to be silenced for telling the truth. Yeah, the trying to be silenced cop out, uh, it may be true. Uh, I do what I can to silence misinformation. I think it's fine for Google and Facebook and YouTube to remove bad information. Um, and they're not removing it like the second you post it. And you know why? It's because it's going through a review. You know, there's certain buzzwords and keywords like this that they're probably looking for. And then it'll get kicked over to a human. And that human will use critical thinking to try to vet what's going on here. And they may even have to go and dig and do some research of their own. And if they find that there's a wildly popular video and it's spreading misinformation, that is a potentially dangerous thing. In many cases, it is dangerous. Conspiracy theories are not always harmless. And what I mean by that is, case in point, with COVID-19, we have a serious pandemic worldwide. Uh, I mean, the implications behind thinking that there's a complex global conspiracy, I mean, the working, moving parts to that would just be like unfathomable. You know, if you think the government can't handle something like healthcare, why do you think they can possibly construct a global conspiracy and make it work and keep everyone quiet? It doesn't make sense. So when someone asks this question, hey, you know, I'm just thinking of, I'm keeping an open mind. Well, no, that's not really an open mind. What you've done is you've decided what you want to believe. You've cherry picked some rather rotten cherries, if I might say, to back up your claim. And so I don't want to get too long-winded about it, but anyway, the point I was getting to is that, with the COVID-19 thing, there's lots of evidence that, you know, science is doing the best that they can to take care of this as quickly as possible. The economy will suffer one way or the other. We're trying to minimize that suffering by getting people to stay home for as long as possible to let the virus die out. Your immune system isn't going to be strengthened by a brand new virus. It's going to be weakened. Only a few people will have a natural strength. I mean, this is a whole complex evolution thing, but the danger lies in allowing conspiracy theorists to use fear to control you into doing what they want, which is reopening the economy so that they can have their money. I mean, don't get me wrong, we all need to eat, we all need a place to live. It's terrible that this is happening, but it's going to be worse if we don't do what we're supposed to do. So that's where this is dangerous. All these conspiracy theories about COVID-19, everyone I've seen has been complete hogwash. I've been doing my best to create videos to combat it, but it's a deluge, man. It's everywhere. It's hard to keep up with. So I hope there's been some good tools here that you can take out into the world that you can share with others. Hit that share button. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out our other channel, Kitchen Sink Microscopy. Got a lot of great stuff there. If you like the way we think on this channel, you're going to see it in action in our conversations over on Kitchen Sink Microscopy. So check us out at ksmvidcast.com. Like, share, and subscribe. And class dismissed.